Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download the app, make sure you rate and leave a comment. We expect a good one. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. And our co-host is joining us, David Morassutti, and we have a very special guest, Michael P. McCarthy. If you don't know who he is, you have to think about 91, you have to think about the Rocket, you have to think about John Candy, and you have to think about that was probably the last time that the Argos were as popular as they were back then. They were loading the Sky Dome. It was an incredible time. Michael, welcome to the program.
Yep, thanks, Frank. Glad to be here on a day after Thanksgiving.
Well, first of all, I hope we can we can get past the grogginess like the defensive line, so we can make some good plays here, pun intended. So the Rocket was a big signing. The NFL had him #1 overall, as we talked previously. And somehow the Toronto Argonauts got his attention, got his group's attention, and they actually went on to sign him. Tell us the story about the signing of Rocket Ishmael.
Well, the whole thing was when Wayne and when Bruce bought the Argos, and then Wayne and Wayne Gretzky were 20% partners, or more or less. They wanted to do, we were a 1990 team. We just going to the Grey Cup in 1990, 689 points scored, all-time scoring team in the 1990 season. And, with our fifth quarterback playing in Winnipeg. So when I first met with those guys, I said, hey, you're buying a great, we're loaded. We got to tweak some spots, but we're, I said, Candy and Bruce and Wayne were sitting at a table with me. This is when we were announcing that February, sometime around Valentine's Day, I believe it was, in 1991. Harry had sold the team. Harry Ornesta sold the team to Bruce. And I had met Bruce a couple times, not knowing he was going to be the owner. Bruce wanted to do a big splash. He says, I want to do something big. We got a great building, the world's greatest indoor entertainment area, field in the world. And, with an opening room, first one to do that, in Sky Dome. So he says, I need something big splash. I said, well, I got some thoughts on that, and I said, we can add somebody. We don't need a quarterback. We have good receivers. We have it all. Darrell K. Smith was the leading receiver league that year in '90, and we had some great non-import players, Canadian, Anastasia, and Andrew Murray, some other guys, and I had brought back the line. We got the line all in place, so we're strong. And I said, we don't need a quarterback. We don't need a running back. We got pinball, and a great, of course, in 1990, he broke the all-purpose for all total yard career or in a season. So, so the big splash. I came up about a week or two later. I Blocker, who was working for Bruce with the LA Kings, and he was like the call all the time when I had to get to Bruce about any information. And I said, here's my big splash. So Rocket Ishmael, Notre Dame wide receiver. Just saw him in the Orange Bowl. He just ran back 2 touchdowns about 2 months ago in the Orange Bowl game against Colorado. And so they said, "Oh, great! That's great." They saw him. They saw him on, his picture was illustrated with a money over his head, and Junior, who's going to go early, it seemed to be pulled out. So to be able to get Rocket, and we started negotiating. And when Bruce, I believe it was Maple Leaf game after the first period hockey game, and the Kings released. And Bruce went, at the end of the out there, he said, well, I was just talking to the GM, my general manager Mike McCarthy, Toronto, and we've decided that we want to add a player from from high draft choice from the National Football League, and it's Rocket Ishmael, and everybody. And this was at midnight time, and so my phone starts ringing here at my house in Stony Creek, Ontario, and everybody and anybody called me. I don't know how all these people got my phone number, but it was a long night for me. Saying, hey, we're just starting to negotiate, and we're talking to his agents. It's all up. I haven't talked to anybody with Rocket. His guys. It's all gas on my part, and it went well. And then the newspapers were loaded with all this information, and then about 2-3 days later, I get a call from Rocket, one of the Team Rocket's representatives. And he said, Mike, are you guys? Yeah, well, you're out in California. I said, here's Bruce's number. I said, I'll prep him on what, do and the kind of money. But he said, we have a lot of money, and we've been negotiating with New England, and they don't want to give us the money we want. And I said, Bruce is very serious. Nobody, he could either a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I guess it was 88 or 89. And it's going in. The Wayne went to the Kings from the Oilers. So, the money's real, and you'll be hearing from him or me again, and at the start of it, okay? And then we progressed 2-3 months later, after New England Patriots got the first pick, and pay Team Rocket what they want, so they want to get out of that pick, and they trade that pick to the Dallas Cowboys. Now Jerry Jones is involved, and he's only owned the Cowboys for about. And I knew Jerry. I coached Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson at Arkansas.
Yep.
When they were on the freshman team. I Switzer at Oklahoma, and then Barry had won 3 national championships, of course, at Oklahoma. And Coach Jerry Jones was around every once in a while, and so I said to Bruce. Called him. I said, hey, now Jerry Jones on this. Dallas will spend the money. He's an oil baron down there in Texas now, and he's loaded. And I said, they will probably pay him, want to pay him, and probably close to what they're asking. And I said, well, now it's more money to do this. So, well, whatever, I said, okay, we'll see where it goes. And about a day and a half before the draft, they pick up Rocket at Notre Dame in a private jet, one of Bruce's, jets, and they fly him to L.A. and his negotiators from Team Rocket, and they do the deal the night before the NFL draft, actually where the draft's getting ready to come on, and they make the announcement with Chris Berman to Rocket, Raghib
Ishmael, yep.
Better known as the Rocket, is the that's a Raghib, Gibb.
Yep.
Raghib. Ishmael signed it, signed with the Toronto Argonauts, and
that created a lot of noise.
When the Dallas Cowboys, it's across the world.
A lot of noise. Yep.
And then even in England and all over the world. Once we did this, and then I was in London, but there's the European cable, Sky, I think it's called. What? It was former Canadian, was one of the producers in London. And our season progressed, and with Rocket playing, we would send the videos from our game. I FedEx them over, or DHL or whoever is using, put it on a Rocket, the cable system in London, which went all through Asia, Australia, Europe. Boom.
Yeah, at that time it was satellite.
At
that time it was satellite television, so it was
2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, correct. So they would take our video, send it to them, they would the loop it together, put the highlight. Just use the highlights of Rollins. So now we're getting all this mail. This is like probably from all from Russia, India, Japan, China, Scotland, England, Ireland. What in some rockets? How can we buy Argo gear? So we got people who send them rubles, from Russia, and we're going, what's the exchange rate on a ruble? It was crazy. It was just insane, and it carried over to, we fill up High Dome. We averaged almost 40,000 a game. Our largest crowd was 50,000 plus that year. We slaughtered Winnipeg in 38-48-3. They scored a field goal at the end. I wanted to shut them out, but they got the field goal. So it was 48-3, I believe. But we went on to the Grey Cup, oldest Grey Cup in the history of the Grey Cups, and minus 17 or plus wind shear and all this other stuff. Crazy.
And raining beer cans.
We were the, and went well. One made it through the fence. They're still arguing. It looked like a Coors Light can, and somebody else said it was an can. So I don't.
Well, it was like a missile.
It would have been
Rocket
interesting if it would have hit him, and it would have hit the ball or something. That would have been. Could they have given us a touchdown?
Yeah.
We played well in that game, and of course the big rocket. It was Matt Dunnigan playing that game with a separated shoulder, a fractured shoulder. And we had to shoot him up. We shot him up the night before in the ballroom of the Sheraton Hotel. Everybody else down at the convention center. It was the player awards that night before Grey Cup. The player awards and CFL, and my wife was there with me, and Robin. She's been with me since high school. She was a cheerleader in high school football. So she called me on my phone. Where are you? What were you doing? I said, well, we're working, control the ball. I got a tuxedo on. Adam Reed is getting ready. He had already left, and the doctor and it's Dunnigan and Danny McCoy, our equipment guys, and we're always going to the team awards, nice banquet. It's a beautiful night, football, the best players in the league, and 600 people there in the convention center in Winnipeg, and Matt's, using me as a wide receiver, throwing the ball, and he's, and they put this needle in him that was, it looked like it was 5 feet long when you're shooting up that needle, and it showed that on a screen because it's right in the joint. I mean, it had to hurt like hell, beyond hell. And took it, and then he said, then he's moving his shoulder, and then finally he put a little zip on, and he threw one to the wall. Let the door hit the door. I said, okay, that's enough. Let's go. And then Doc said, he can't hurt it anymore. He can't unless he, there's. They're going to tape it up, and so he was ready to roll. And the first when they went out there to warm up, we let him warm up. We had to give him the shot again, and that was you could hear the scream from the training room into the locker room. Everybody said, "What's that?" Oh, that's just not getting a shot, And it was like somebody cut his head off, and he was tough son of a gun, and. It's a story beyond the Rocket story. That was a story. This guy was going to play, and he played well enough for us to win. And at his best, we did it, with a one-armed quarterback, correct, and Doggy won 2 games for us a year, and we had, had good strength at the quarterback position, and the whole thing came together. That was the icing on the cake, whole ribbon, the Grey Cup, just one thing after another on that season, and that it made it what it was. The ownership,
yep,
Bruce McNall, we had a great players. I think 8 or 9 of them are now in the Hall of Fame, Canadian football. And a couple of them were in College Football Hall of Fame, United States, and it was like it's like a fantasy thing, and
it's true.
and,
It's true. It was, Michael. That we can try and bring in the best players we can find, but it doesn't always work out. You had the greatest promotional tool in John Candy and of course Wayne Gretzky. You had an owner that had some money that could afford to send a jet to go get the Rocket. You had players like you mentioned, Daryl K. Smith. You had you had great quarterbacks. You had a great team. You had Pinball Clemens.
Great offensive line, Peroni, Kluter, Chris Schultz. I mean,
and it all worked. It doesn't always, paper is paper, right?
It together. I mean, Jimmy Cardash, Paul, Morassutti, Murray, Chalmik had a great year. Hank Kalisic, the NFL, and put him back. Yeah, nice job. Just every spot we got big, or we didn't score as many points the year before. But we weren't far behind that. Probably 20 points behind that. But
I have a theory. I have a theory about that.
We were trying to get the ball to Rocket all the time, and then when Rocket,
absolutely. I mean, when you have a guy like the Rocket on your team, it heightens the excitement and intensity of the opposition as well. So it can be a little going uphill, right? That's why paper sometimes gets befuddled by reality.
Frank, we went into that. Yeah, the game. I mean, Rocket left the game before this Eastern Final. He left the game. Matt Eastern Final to the shoulder. Pinball had a bruised bone. You know how you bruise the bone in your stops your foot from moving, but then your slides forward against the bone, so you get a bone bruise, big toe, and
turf
toe.
toe.
I mean, he hardly practiced at all that week before that. We had 3 to 4 guys that were going, they may not play. Oh my God, I'm going. Yeah, we had good backups and stuff. I mean, the guys who were breaking the records were the guys that were hurt. So. But it all came together. Everybody believed in it. Was you had to form a team of players and coaches that football means everything to them. And
yep,
you play as a team.
Mike,
it's a SEAL team. Everything.
Mike.
Yeah.
What's important?
Yeah.
Is that you have a GM that loads the team enough that it has some depth, so that in case stuff happens, you have guys to pick up. That's the contribution that you made. Nobody forgets that. Well, that was a great moment, and I know you had a chance to spend time with about 17 of the players in the room. That must have been great. I know how sad it was that unfortunately in these COVID times, the challenges of getting everybody here that you wanted to get here, it didn't happen. But I'm sure the little bit that you had going on must have been at least nice to see some of the old guys, and sadly the guys who have since passed away. It was a great experience and a great memory for Toronto sports fans, the Toronto Argonaut fans, CFL fans, and more importantly, everybody in sports, because that was one time when the Canadian Football League reached up and said, "Yep, we're here. You notice us," and you highlighted it with with all the information that traveled around the world and how you got stuff. It's the kind of thing that we wish that the Canadian Football League could put together again. Nowadays it's a little hard because there aren't that many opportunities like taking a Rocket away from the NFL today. The CFL is pretty hard pressed, and I want to thank.
Correct. Yeah,
and I wanted to thank you for the work that you've done, and you've stayed in the Canadian Football League. You're with the Hamilton Tiger Cats now, I guess. Thanks for everything that you've done. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm not with anybody in the league. Well, I'm here. I live here, and I football players here, but I'm working for a new spring league football, which we're kind of. Here's my.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
To play.
Does that have anything to
spring,
do? MFLB, ML. What is it? MFLB.
MLFB.
MLFB.
Major League, Major League Football. Google it.
Yeah, no, I know.
MLFB.com.
I interviewed the media guy. Geez, him and his wife just had an anniversary, and now I'm forgetting his name now. But anyway, I just congratulate him on their anniversary. Yeah. He's like 9 years married with the same with his wife. Real interesting story he told about it too.
He's no longer the media guy. He's
I know he isn't.
Media guy, but
I know he isn't. I know he isn't. But yeah, we did some coverage of it a few years ago when it was in its inception. I'm more than glad to discuss it later when and if it gets a little deeper. Michael, your final thoughts?
Yeah, well, we're hoping to play this.
Your final thoughts on the Canadian Football League? Yeah, your final thoughts on the Canadian Football League and having seen the feast and being in Hamilton, you get to see more of a feast. It's a well covered team, and also the fans love that team there. How could we replicate that here in Toronto? You saw one way of doing it. There aren't many Gretzkys, McNalls, and Candys around, and Rockets to bring that exact thing back. But what would help in Toronto, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I know they're doing everything they can to get people in the field. Of course, we were in Sky Dome. Going from the X, was a big step forward too. Yeah. Jays were a big part of that. Jays playing at Sky Dome also. So and still the next big until somebody else, another big guy moves in the neighborhood from a football league and builds a couple $1 billion stadium and puts a team here, which is probably I think it's a probability in the future because one of the world's classiest is right here, and the NFL's not. And now they're playing again this weekend again in London. After they played just past week in London. So I think you're going to pull something like that. So, but the thing is, oldest football team in the world. I mean, league's been around, 52 years if you count. We were in a whole Hamilton Tiger Cat football club, and then the Argonauts were formed a year later, in 1871, I believe, and then they played each other, and then everybody, becoming what it was from a league to what it is today, and it's a great history. People have to care about it. We do have some patriots, some people, patriots of the Canadian football that love the game and are crazy in this tough steel town. It still is. It's not what it was 40 years ago or 50 years ago or 60 years ago. Sounds like that anymore. You go to Pittsburgh and like that, and history of the league is important, and it's a great history for the Canadian people, such as hockey is too, and lacrosse, and of course lacrosse is our national sport, not hockey, which is kind of cool to say. Wow, that's it's not hockey. No, it's lacrosse. Well,
thanks.
Together and work together and build it, and they will come. And,
that's the hope. Thanks for your input,
dealing
Mike.
With people.
Thanks for your input, Mike. I really appreciate the time you took away to help us out, to remember those good old days and sharing some of those great stories that you have, sir. It was my pleasure having you on.
Okay, all right. Appreciate it. Have a good day. Okay. Bye.
Bye, buddy. That's Michael P. McCarthy, the man that brought us the Rocket and, of course, brought a Grey Cup championship to Toronto, and also was the first team to be in the Sky Dome, first CFL team, and they couldn't help but get 50,000 folks in there. So it's a great thing. Anyway, okay. So let's talk about what happened in football this weekend. First of all, a lot going on, and it was the week. I guess, to put it bluntly, that had two teams play twice and the other teams play once for 5 games, and one team didn't play at all. I'm still trying to figure out that math, David. Like, what's up with that?
It's somebody also asked, because, there's CFL fantasy, and people are asking, do I play a guy who's playing twice this week? It's like, of course, they count for both games. This is where I'm people still have some quorums with the CFL. Like, when does the CFL week start and when does it end? So like I thought technically the CFL week should always end after the Saturday games, and then it restarts, the following day or or on the Monday. So that's what I thought. The Thanksgiving games would be on their own, like they're not part of the week that just happened. I find it a little weird that the Argos play twice in a week, even Ottawa and
and BC didn't play at all. They
had 2
10
games
teams play. 10 teams played. 10 teams. They might as well have had 6 games, and they could have had Calgary play again, because BC got It's crazy. They maintained the off week, which BC ended up with. So there were 8 of the teams played. 2 of them played twice. And I got to tell you, both the teams played really well, the Argos and Ottawa. But let's talk about the games really quick. The first game was Ottawa. They lost 35-16 to Toronto. That was a game that was a pretty amazing game for the Argos, who are developing this. I know that Montreal likes to be referred to as the cardiac kids, but they're doing a bit of their own cardiac thing.
This was the Argos realizing they were going up against a rookie quarterback, and we're not going to make things
that had a good week.
Yeah. And they put so much pressure on him to beat them. And that's Chris Jones, I think, playing a little bit of mind games with a young quarterback. And the Argos, like that third quarter, I think it was the most exciting quarter of football I think the Argos have played in a very long time.
Fans should come back for that. That's the kind of stuff we missed the last few years, where the Argos didn't do that at home. They did the opposite.
And we're dominant. Like, this was their most dominant home win I know they've beaten up on Ottawa at home in the past, but Ottawa had no chance in that third quarter with the way that the Argos defense and special teams were getting it done.
It was a real rope-a-dope. For those of you that don't know Muhammad Ali, he did a thing called the rope-a-dope, where he would, in the early rounds, he would just jump around, dance around, see what the guy had, his opponent had, lets him take his best shot, and then it ends. And that's what happened to Ottawa. Ottawa was given an opportunity by Toronto to see what they could do, but then the later rounds, if I can use the boxing term, the Argos came out crazy. 27 points in the third quarter. Defense, offense, special teams.
Yeah, that was the first game since 2004 that the Argos had scored a touchdown on all 3 phases in one game.
And they did a great job of it. Our next game is Edmonton and Winnipeg, and we're starting to see a trend here. This is about the cardiac fans in Edmonton whose hearts are being broken game in, game out, and this game was just another game in the slide of the Edmonton Elk. It is amazing how difficult they've had a time of playing well, David. It's just amazing. It's this team, you expect so much more.
The way that this team has gone downhill is, it's shocking in a way because of the players that are on the team. I understand it's a new coach and things like that, but this is not the team you expect to do that. It's one thing to lose. Like, Winnipeg is a hard team to beat. We know that, but they didn't get beat. They got absolutely demolished from all stands. The quarterback position is the biggest question mark right now in Edmonton. But
today, David, I don't know if you heard, they announced that Harris won't be starting, and he's not injured.
He's going to be on the bench. He's not even active. He's going to be on the bench. He's going to be not even on the bench, or he might be on the sidelines hanging around. We'll see.
And but they're saying he's not injured.
No, I read that. So Elizondo said right now that Taylor Cornelius and Dakota Prukop give them the best chance at the quarterback position based on what they can do. So and he said it's not injury related for Harris, but I think there's a psyche issue there as well. After he just went through a neck injury, coming back and didn't look good. That's such a tough spot to put Harrison. And
so you're alluding to what you're saying is that there's a physical insecurity maybe that's going on there.
I just think that it was not planned the right way in terms of, look, if he was not right, it's one thing to be good like physically with your physical stuff, But if mentally you're not there after you come back from an injury like that, that's not the game you want to bring back your quarterback in. If against a team like Winnipeg,
Oh boy,
that's asking yourself for trouble. And I mean, they played the net. I mean, they also play against Winnipeg again, so it's not like I understand you can't hold them back for 2 games if that's the case. But
yes.
if this is the coach has to really figure out, is he ready for this? Can we count on him to be that guy for us? And it's bad that when you put the guy in and then the next 2 days later you say he just can't do it for us. We can't trust to put him in the game. I think that's also on the coaching staff for not dealing with that the right way with their quarterback.
Let's make sure, though, also that we don't, minimize the contribution Winnipeg made to the score in that game. Winnipeg is running on all cylinders. Their defense, their offense, and the fact that they're downright mean, David, and now they're even bragging about it. They're talking about us. We want to be mean. That's what we want to. We want to punch guys in the face, and I don't mean literally. Well, maybe I do mean literally. I don't know. I just that they are the kind of, if any team's going to punch any other team in the face, it's going to be Winnipeg.
And it's either one week it's going to be Zach Claros. This week it was Andrew Harris.
Yeah, that was amazing. Harris they kept feeding him the ball.
He as I've always said, it's he doesn't even need to. He had 24 carries and he averaged 6.2 yards a carry. That just means not only was the offensive line on their at their best, but Edmonton just had no it's like one of those where you're just want to hold up the white flag for the other team, because it's just like, how much more was Edmonton going to be able to take, with Andrew Harris just running all over them like that?
Absolutely. And you know what? They did it without the league leading receiver as well, Lawler, who, as we know, has been suspended for a couple of games.
I thought that for him, it couldn't have come at a worse time after he had his career best game. I'm wondering if the organization said it was just going to be the one game. I don't know. Some people were wondering if maybe they should have sent more of a message for something like that. But we'll see how they handle that for the rest of the year.
Yeah, Winnipeg, definitely the class of the league, and by class we mean really good team. They're good value for what they've accomplished. It hasn't been accidental. The big surprise these last 2 weeks is Calgary. Their rejuvenation, they're doing it kind of with Bo Levi Mitchell, kind of without. But the fact is they beat Saskatchewan twice, the team that finished first in the West, a team that should have been fighting with Winnipeg for first overall in the Western Division. And all of a sudden, their fortunes have gone completely about face. What do you see as the big change that caused Calgary to go from really a team that may not make the playoffs to a team that could be fighting for second place?
Their defense, it's, the one thing that can help a quarterback that's struggling, a defense that doesn't allow the opponents to score a lot of points. And, they had 19 on, this past week. And then, I think 2 weeks ago, it was almost similar. Like, the Calgary Stampeders were supposed to be an all-around team with a very dynamic offense, really haunting defense, and good able to get explosive play on special teams. We're seeing the defense start to pick up the slack a bit. There's a lot of new faces in Calgary. It takes time for the chemistry and for everything to build the way you want it to. And I think we're starting to see Calgary starting to come into his own defensively. Offensively, what's going to make them a better team than what they are right now is if their offense starts to fire on all cylinders. I think Kamar Jordan returned to practice, so that's a good sign for them. I think his presence is missed for Bo Levi Mitchell because that's a guy he can trust. I think Jake Mayer right now is in COVID protocol, so he might not even be around for them for their next game. But I think Calgary realized we have 2 games against a team that we're chasing in the standings. We're right behind them. Let's close that gap. And I give them full credit because this is a team that a lot of people were worried about, us, me included. And they're turning that narrative around. It builds up that confidence with the group.
There's no panic in the organization. Their coach is well experienced, has done nothing but lead teams year in, year out to competing not just for a playoff spot, but for first place. Calgary has been the best team in the Canadian Football League over the past, I think, if I said 10 years, I don't think I'd be exaggerating. No. So we shouldn't be surprised that this team's able to recover their season as they have so far this year.
You can never, ever put down the Stampede. Like a team that, as you said, Frank, that's been this good for so long. Some were saying, when is it going to end? Well, it's going to end when when the whole team, the whole organization, not just the players, kind of lose a step. But they haven't lost a step fully yet. They're not there yet. I know, and they probably agree with that too, but they're getting there. They're on the right path.
Yeah, they're doing it the hard way, in my opinion. And the hard way is when your number one quarterback, who historically is one of the best quarterbacks every season, has not been one of the best quarterbacks in the Canadian Football League. And this is not meant as an insult to Bo Levi Mitchell. It's meant to suggest, my suggestion is this: when you have a quarterback that's one of the best, playing the best, is not playing the best, to overcome that defensively and everywhere else in the offense or special teams is quite a burden to carry, and a difficulty in, getting past that problem, and so much so that Dickinson made it very clear that he was aware. So this team knows what they need to do. And as he said, I need my number one quarterback to play like a number one quarterback. And if he doesn't, this is my part, left unsaid, the rest of the team has to play that much better, because a quarterback's so important in the Canadian Football League.
No, I totally agree with that. I think what elevates a team from being a good team to a championship level team is that quarterback position. We saw that with Winnipeg in 2019.
Yep, at the end of the season.
By the end of the season, they were on a lull. They get in, bring in Zach Claros, and he elevated them into a Grey Cup team, because without Zach Claros, they don't make it to the Grey Cup. And I don't think that's a stretch to think that. And I think that's what Calgary is realizing. We have a good team, but we need our best player to elevate us to a championship team. And I think he's had to realize that he's not the same Bo Levi Mitchell because of the injuries.
Yeah, he is not the same Bo Levi Mitchell. He has had difficulty playing through a whole game. He's had difficulty staying healthy. And because of that, the level of expectation that we all have, whether you're a fan of the Calgary Stampeders, the Canadian Football League, or just the game itself, and or players, you have favorites as far as players are concerned. And if he's one of your favorites, where the disappointment is strictly, he just is not having any luck. He's having the kind of Bernie Nichols season, and it started at the end of last year. And he's had some injuries in the past too that have kept him out. So, we've seen tough situations for quarterbacks, and we've seen how quarterbacks have dealt with it, and it's been difficult at best. And, Bo Levi has had a real challenge, and a guy who is so accustomed to being able to show what he can do. I can't imagine how emotionally distressful that is when they have no control over the physical health that they're playing with. That's got to be frustrating for a guy who's he's an A guy, he's an A personality. So this guy can't be good either, right? Like we were talking about earlier about, the mental aspect of the game.
He's used to playing with the swagger because he's used to being the best.
Absolutely.
He can back up his talk with the way he plays. And right now he's not, he's not there yet. Luckily for that offense, Kadeem Carey was able to step up in a big way, because I think without Kadeem Carey moving the chains like he did, this game came down to the kicking once, not something you hear about with Calgary. Calgary never liked to kick field goals. They would go for 2 points a lot of the times. They're the team that wants their offense to win the game. And I think, again, this is, a team that's had to adapt, and seeing a running game in Calgary, not something we would talk about a few years ago.
The security blanket that is Paredes has become more than a security blanket. He made sure they got points every time they moved the ball. Over these past few years, he's made a great contribution to the team. But lately, in the past few games, it's been field goal, field goal, field goal, field goal, field goal,
touchdown,
field goal, right? And then maybe a touchdown.
5 in this game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Went up 6 times. That's not something you used to see in Calgary.
Yeah, and it's not that we're kicking for granted, but what the message it sends is your offense is doing okay, but it's not going, getting in the end zone, which is really, I mean, no team like, it's not fair to kickers to say this stuff, but it's what you hear. No team really wants to go down the field and come back with a field goal. They don't want to leave any points on the board, and that's what Calgary's been doing. And fortunately for them, it's been enough in the last couple of games against Saskatchewan. It was in the last game they played. It was in this game that happened this week. And it's going to be interesting, David, how important it is for Calgary and Saskatchewan the next game they play against each other, because you highlighted the main reason. They're fighting for second place.
Yeah, 2 weeks from now, they're playing again. Calgary has BC this week. So that's Calgary. Calgary has a very tough road ahead of them. But I think it's going to make them a better team if they're able to keep this momentum going.
This is the run that they can take. Beating BC this week would enhance their opportunities for ending up in second, because BC is the other team they got to pass. So, yeah, that's really important. Let's move on to the next game. So Calgary wins 22-19. Ottawa defeats themselves, or Montreal comes back 20-16. The Cardiac Kids, they do it not with Vernon Adams. VA gets hurt. He gets there was a hit he took to his head there when he went down, and then the following hit's the one that buried him and took him out of the game. This is a Montreal team that's had to deal with adversity. That adversity has continued, but they got a quarterback in Matthew Schultz who proved that he can pick up the slack.
I thought VA was done after that first hit. I think he should have been done personally. When you see a quarterback get knocked down like that and down,
it was horrible.
Like, he was knocked down. He was not. No, it was bad. And the other thing too that I was impressed about this victory for Montreal is William Stanback wasn't even playing.
Exactly.
Cameron Artis-Payne, who I remember from the NFL with the Carolina Panthers. 122. Like, this is Montreal. I feel like Montreal is right now starting to get they've got their systems in place and they can plug players into it. That's what happens when you have an established coach when you have an offense that can rely on the running game. They have a good offensive line. Passing game still isn't completely there, but I mean, as you said, Schultz, he went into a very tough situation. They needed to score a touchdown, right? They couldn't just win it off a field goal. And, I give Montreal a lot of credit because, they had a very tough loss to Toronto. They needed to regroup. They were losing their, Ottawa was catching up to them a little bit, and they needed to separate themselves a bit, and they were able to get that done.
Yeah, I really like Montreal this year, especially because they've had some adversity. They've been a team that, made such great strides at the end of 2019. They made a threat to finish first. They made it a battle with Hamilton that was a pretty dominating team. Vernon Adams, showed us the kind of moxie that he has and the ability to really pull rabbits out of the hat. This Montreal team is a never say die team, and they did a marvelous job against Ottawa that's playing well, not well enough to win like we saw against Toronto earlier in the week. Same thing happened here. Once again, we're talking about the team on the other side of the equation where teams come back. They were the victims of, like Hamilton, coming back the last two games. Montreal took out Hamilton, as did Toronto this past week, and both Hamilton and Ottawa switched places with the same result, just unable to finish. Do you see any salvaging proof that Ottawa is doing some stuff? They found themselves a quarterback. The question is, his rookiness may come to, have problems, of course, because that's what being a rookie is. You don't know the league. I mean, it can be advantageous that the league doesn't know you, but that only lasts a short time. Then you got to prove that you can handle it. And that's the biggest challenge I think the Ottawa quarterback has. How do you feel about Ottawa and how they're doing? La Police has been doing a good job of at least having a quarterback that can execute something that looks like a plan.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing there is, look, Caleb Evans was impressive in his first game, but he got knocked down a peg against Toronto. And I think they got to build him back up again. You know, that I didn't expect him to, turn things around.
Chris Jones defense.
Right. And so I think he's still a quarterback that can make plays, whether it's with his arm or with his, with his legs. I think that's crucial for Ottawa to know that they can have a guy that can, kind of make those plays. Now it's okay. You have to realize now you have to be very decisive in the CFL as a quarterback. You're not going to get as much time in the pocket. I think at times he's a little guilty of holding it a little bit too long. He's got to get it out a lot quicker than I think he has been, and I think they got to get his confidence back up. I think they got to shorten the field a little bit for him just so that he can, get his rhythm, to establish his rhythm again. He had great field position against Edmonton a lot of the times because either the defense was putting them in a good spot or, Devontae Dedmon was putting them in a good spot. And that's, I think, where Ottawa needs to put the focus is how can we make life easier for the quarterback?
Does that mean taking away RPOs?
No, I think
dictate more.
I think you gotta. I think you actually need to do more of those RPOs. You need to have the defense guessing a little bit more because Caleb Evans, to me, I don't think he's a guy that's going to be able to hold it in the pocket for very long. You need guys that can get open quick. Whether it's that means he needs to run the ball a little bit more just to keep the defense from sitting back and kind of make them be a little more make them a little more honest. I think that's what he has to do, but it's not going to be easy. Again, he was knocked down a peg, so teams feel confident that they can stop him.
It was an interesting week, interesting games. Ottawa looked good, just couldn't finish off. 2016 Montreal, and then the game we watched yesterday, which I'm still in awe of this game. The Toronto Argonauts defeating Hamilton 24-23. Anybody who thinks that when the Argos go into Hamilton, just chalk up a loss, there's no point even thinking that there's going to be a win by the Argos, especially when you consider the only time they've beaten the Hamilton Tiger Cats at Tim Hortons Field was in Game 1 at Tim Hortons Field between the Toronto Argonauts and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They have not won since, and I guess it's 5 games they've lost in a row. And they have not just lost in Hamilton, they have lost badly. They have looked bad when they've lost. This was a team that in the first half looked like it was going to be another one of those games, David, but something happened. This team, what I like about the Argos and what's scary about the Argos, and other teams are going to take note, it's what they do at halftime.
Yeah, I think that was this time, it was looking like carbon copies of the Labor Day game where Toronto just could not move the ball. They could not get first downs. They couldn't get into the red zone. Hamilton was throwing everything at them early, and I think, yes, they made the adjustments. It took some time. It took them until the fourth quarter, actually, which I know, Ryan, we would like to do that earlier in the game. But I'm going to give it to the Argos defense because without that defense, I think that game could have gone very out of hand, and this team would not have had a chance. But the turning point had to be that challenge on the roughing the passer call. Totally. Because without that, the Argos don't get another chance on that drive to score the touchdown. And that's coaching right there. Some will say that there shouldn't have been a penalty. Everyone in the booth, if you watch the game, they all said it was made contact with the head.
You can't do that.
You just can't do it. So, I mean, both teams were fortunate to get some calls later in that game with some of those challenges. And it's how you make it if you take advantage of it. And I think McLeod Bethel Thompson in those scoring drives, the 3 scoring drives that got them the win, he showed that he was decisive with his reads. He knew where he wanted to go with the ball, and it came out quick. He wasn't holding the ball too much because Hamilton was just nailing him when he held on to that ball too long because that offensive line couldn't hold them back. And look, Jeremiah Mazzoli, in that first half, and that touchdown he threw late in the game, I thought that was going to be the backbreaker because he was starting to show the old Jeremiah Mazzoli a little bit in that game.
Yeah, it sounded and it looked like they were trying to, save some energy in the first half. And then they just blew off the doors and realized, I think they were told at halftime, probably, I'm saying assume, look, guys, we're not playing until a week this coming Friday, and we're talking on Monday. So, they have quite a bit of time to heal and quite a bit of time to rest. And they came out like there was no tomorrow. And they did a great job of doing that. And I think Hamilton got a good call when they called that pass interference. I'm confused. I know that the hand on the shoulder is the reason why they called it, but doesn't the hand on the ball mean anything? That, they're fighting for the ball. He's allowed to make contact if he's going to play the ball, and he hit the ball with his hand. I was confused about that.
That was because he came in, the defender came in early with the contact.
Yeah, I hear you.
If he hits the ball and the defender at the same time, the defender's gonna get the call. But because he made contact with the receiver before the ball got to him, you're not gonna win that battle, unfortunately.
Yeah, it wasn't that long between the push on the shoulder. But anyway, I'm just saying, but Hamilton got their chance. The Argos did what they need to do, what their defense has done, and that is bend, not break. They allowed a few first downs. They gave Hamilton an opportunity to kick a field goal, but that's all they gave them. And the field goal, as we know, because of the way the game ended, was not enough for Hamilton to win.
No, it wasn't. And, I get the Argos had in that drive, there was a crucial third down play they needed to make. And who do they go to? They go to a rookie. Like, that's not something that you really see from Ryan Dinwiddie. But on the Hamilton side, I think you're very disappointed that 3 field goals, the longest field goal was 28 yards.
Yes.
That means you were very close to making 3 points into 6 points.
Unable to finish.
And that's, I think, where the Argos defense really had their impact in that. Yeah, they did allow. I mean, Chairman Mazzoli had almost 361 yards. That's a lot of production from the quarterback position. So the Argos, I think, learned a little bit of a lesson there. They got to start better. They'll be happy to take that win, and a big win for sure.
Well, the reputation they're developing is they are a team that can identify the problems that they create for themselves and then go in at halftime and adjust well. That is basically the difference between this Argo team this year and the Argo team in 2019. They went into the locker room the same way, but came out without an answer. And this year's Argos have come out with an answer.
I think so too, and I think with more time to practice and get gel together that team, they'll be much better.
This is a team with only 2 players coming back from 2019. Just to give you an idea of how tough a rebuild this was, and starters I'm talking about, and how important it is that the gelling process continue and they be given an opportunity to gel. They've been gelling, and that's something that in football is a priority in winning.
Definitely.
Because you definitely have to get used to different plays, different things. It was a lot of fun to watch. I'm glad we had a chance to see it. I was eating Thanksgiving dinner, so I was kind of watching the game and, getting ready for the press conference and all that, David. So it was kind of a challenge, let me tell you.
Oh, for sure. Definitely.
All right. So for David Morassutti, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. You've been watching CFL Talk, airing live Mondays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time because of this Thanksgiving Day weekend. We did the show today at Tuesday. We'll go back to Mondays. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network for CFL Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer. Please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Till next time.